Guys, that's right. It's me again, here to talk to you guys about Diablo 4. The one guy with the best takes. I know you guys can stop, please. Please stop. Thank you. So, one of the things that I haven't taken the time to do on this channel is discuss the critical issues that face Diablo 4 moving forward, because I've talked about it and I've had criticisms of the game in the past. However, I've not talked about how critical and how ingrained, how foundational some of the issues with the game are and what it means for the future of it. We're talking about a game that's trying to survive in a live service market, one of the most competitive markets in all of gaming. Games fall in and out of relevancy every day. So with that said, when we're looking at Diablo 4 and some of the issues the game has, it doesn't have a lot of time to be able to try to course correct, because by the time it actually does, there's a really good opportunity that somebody else is already there taking the throne from them to begin with, if it's even sitting on a throne at this point. But when we're looking at the recent layoffs that Xbox had with Activision Blizzard, it's relatively easy to see that if Diablo 4 doesn't turn it around quickly, they're next. I've played and followed Diablo for quite a while now. Many of you that are watching this video right now likely found me through Diablo-related content at one point in time in the past. While the game has slowly improved, I find the trajectory of Diablo 4 is just, well, it's just not looking good. Since its launch, the game has navigated choppy waters, struggling to find its place in a fiercely competitive live service market. The recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard adds another layer of complexity onto this whole entire scenario, because significant layoffs after the acquisition signal a no-nonsense approach to underperforming projects from Xbox.
Having seen what's in store for players, I can say the future of Blizzard is brighter than ever.
With Diablo 4's ongoing struggles to solidify its footing as a live service game, it's not hard to see the looming threat of being the next in line in a drastic measure if things don't turn around quickly. The longer Diablo 4 takes to break out of its issues, the further the game falls from general interest. My opinions about Diablo 4 are not unfounded. The game's launch, while met with a lot of enthusiasm, quickly revealed deeper issues. The endgame, a crucial aspect for any ARPG, fell short of players' expectations. Players found that the progression and gameplay loops were lacking, leading to a general waning interest in the game that's been really difficult for Diablo 4 to rekindle. This situation is made even more precarious by the impending release of a heavy hitter like Path of Exile 2 right around the corner, and arguably the bigger threat to Diablo 4, in my opinion, in Last Epoch. These games threaten to overshadow Diablo 4, capturing the attention of an audience that is becoming increasingly disillusioned with Blizzard's offering. Now again, Diablo 4 has improved. However, these incremental changes made in subsequent seasons, while well-intentioned, haven't sufficed. The pace of these updates is slow and cautious. It's an out-of-step approach with a rapidly evolving landscape of live service games. By the time that Diablo 4 finally hits its stride, it may be too late. Now, in my last coverage of Diablo 4, I made a video that was titled, "No, Blizzard, Diablo 4 expansion is not worth $100. And the point of that video really was because I felt that Blizzard was taking a victory lap, planning their next expansion and how much money they were going to charge for it, without paying attention to the fact that the game was still burning in the dumpster out back. Now, that I think about it, that's exactly how they cover up for just about every controversy they have. Now, while yes, Blizzard did make a lot of money off of the box price for Diablo 4, that's not what the game was made for. The game was made for its live service. That's why people are actively working on the live service. I would argue there's a good chance that most of the teams are working on the live service. Now, with that said, if the live service isn't viable and it's not working and these seasons are not bringing in as many players or as many microtransactions as Blizzard planned for it, then if it's not financially viable, why is it still around? It wouldn't be. Which leads me to believe that if Xbox looks at it any longer and says, hey, if you guys can't pull it together in the next couple of seasons, it's probably done. And personally, I'm in the position in which, after looking at Diablo 4 and a lot of the updates that they've made, a lot of the changes that they've made, I'm going to be honest, I actually don't think that they know what it takes to make Diablo 4 a successful live service game. The problems with Diablo 4 begin at a systemic level. One prominent issue is the Battle Pass system. While it is the most successful part of any live service game, the Battle Pass is a beacon. It draws players with its exciting and flashy rewards meant to get players either financially invested in the season or make them play longer, which gives them an increased chance of capturing those players either through the Battle Pass or through the in-game shop. However, in Diablo 4, this system is lackluster, failing to provide any incentive for players to invest any of their money or their time. This is a critical flaw in a genre in which player retention is key. Now, this is obviously my opinion, and this isn't a video that's based on ethics. Instead, this is a video looking at Blizzard's actions with Diablo 4 from a business perspective first. And there's a common thread that you're going to see that starts here, and it's going to weave its way all the way through the entire video. Because when I'm looking at what they've done with their Battle Pass, as well as a lot of the other in-game skins, one of the things that's confusing to me is that this is something that's relatively reflective of what vocal minority player outcries were before the game came out, saying don't put flashy skins in the game, no gaudy skins in the game, we don't want any neon glowing wings, we don't want it to look like Path of Exile. Well, that does serve the vocal minority. That doesn't serve the wider audience that Blizzard is apparently trying to appeal to with Diablo 4. Those are the exact people that will buy those kind of things. They want to look as flashy and as gross on screen as absolutely possible because that's what they have fun spending their money on. I recently saw there was a post on Reddit where somebody said, "Thanks, Blizzard, for making all the rewards boring. It sure makes it easy for me to not spend any money." From a business perspective, that's not good. Now moving on to itemization. Diablo 4 seems to miss the mark in creating a rich and rewarding loot system and loot experience, which is another thing that's really key to an ARPG. The allure to ARPGs traditionally has been deep and intricate itemization systems, offering the players the joy of discovering powerful and unique equipment. This directly ties into the satisfaction of build crafting, where players can experiment and optimize their characters. Unfortunately, Diablo 4 seems to have a relatively uninspiring approach to this. With the lack of synergy and excitement in the items and builds that are available, something like this ends up being compounded even further with the lack of a meaningful crafting system. While I understand that games want to appeal to a wider audience, it is possible to make a crafting system and an itemization system that's both engaging and easy to understand. Last Epoch is a great example of this. Now take that itemization and lack of player agency and add onto it a disjointed nature with the game's various systems. Open world exploration, nightmare dungeons, and seasonal mechanics don't always work in harmony. The open world, which should be a vibrant and integral part of the gameplay, often feels neglected and secondary. Players find themselves funneling into these linear or more rewarding gameplay modes, leaving vast swaths of the game's content and world underutilized. Now, I think this is something that is exemplified by what's going on with Diablo 4 Season 3, because they put out a seasonal mechanic that is contradictory to how players even play ARPGs or Diablo 4 to begin with. Something that is slow-paced, high accuracy, filled with traps, something that players are not going to like. I can't imagine anybody liking it. Many players didn't, to the point that it led to backlash. And then Blizzard's response was basically just rooting out the entire mechanic. Which, what does that tell you? If their solution was to get rid of a mechanic that they purposefully implemented into a game that they designed themselves, that's antithetical to the way that they play Diablo 4, that tells me that they're not playtesting it, they're not playing it themselves, that they don't even know what's fun in the context of a seasonal ARPG. Or even worse, they don't even know who their audience is. One of the biggest counter arguments that I've seen to many of the videos that I made in the past, especially those that make comparisons between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile, is that Diablo 4 is a game that is made for casual audiences. The Diablo dads, if you will. However, I think that there is a fundamental misunderstanding of the game's audience on the side of Activision Blizzard. Diablo 4 seems to be torn between appealing to traditional, more hardcore ARPG fans, and then also this broader, more casual audience. This confusion is directly reflected in not only the game's mechanics, but also the feedback loops that they have with their community. The developers appear to be swayed heavily by the vocal minority on Reddit and Twitter, with regular interactions between these platforms would make those players not the silent majority, nor a casual player. If you're on Reddit complaining about Diablo 4, hell, even if you're watching this video right now, there's a good chance that not many people would classify you as a casual player with casual player needs. The lack of a clear audience and understanding leads to the seasons with core mechanics that either fail to excite, have minimal impact, or worse, detract from player enjoyment. I believe that this is exemplified in each consecutive season that we've had. These seasons aren't nearly as imaginative as Path of Exile nor complex, which is fine. However, they aren't exciting either. What has players excited between each season are the updates that have been for the core mechanics and the core issues of the game, how it controls, resistances, experience buffs, the removal of tedious account progression, and the upcoming itemization changes. While these changes matter and they need to continue to happen, the lack of creativity and awareness designing these new seasons going forward doesn't bode well for the future of the game. And I think this is the most concerning part about Diablo 4. Because if we look at it in the context of how the game was actually developed, it all starts to kind of make sense. I mean, I think the initial offering of Diablo 4 was fine. The first 25 to 35 hours of gameplay where you're going through the story, the cutscenes were good, the voice acting was good, the music was good, the game looked good. But after that, it really didn't seem like they had a lot of intelligent design in how the end game was going to be set up for Diablo 4, the end game loops for Diablo 4. And I widely believe that many of the developers that are at Blizzard are relatively talented. I think they probably have incredibly great ideas. But the problem is that when you have companies that are as large as Blizzard, there's a lot of people's hands in the cookie jar. And anytime somebody comes to the table with a new idea, what ends up happening is you have a bunch of other people that have to approve it, each one of them putting in their 2 cents. And then you have something that's unique and original, but by the time it gets up to the top, now they're trying to make it for casual players, but maybe that mechanic doesn't really suit casual players, or they have a casual player mechanic that they want to do, but that doesn't really suit the hardcore audience, and they end up getting torn in between, and we get these weird amalgamations of just really odd seasonal mechanics as a result. This is part of one of the reasons why I believe like a lot of these companies are just having issues in general, and that's just because there's just too many people making too many decisions because too much is riding on the line. There's too much being invested in these games. There's too many people's jobs on the line. And it's just causing a lot of issues in the end. And personally, I don't really know exactly what the solution is. I just know what the result is. And it's a game that just lacks ingenuity and lacks identity. Reflecting on the current state of Diablo 4, it's becoming increasingly clear that the best course of action might be for them to take a strategic pause on seasonal updates. This would allow the development team to be able to focus squarely on addressing the core issues of the game that are impeding player enjoyment. By stepping back and taking the time to fix the foundational problems, the game could reposition itself for a stronger and more impactful return. In this period of recalibration, there's an opportunity to rethink what makes a seasonal ARPG experience truly engaging. For instance, introducing a mechanic like a season of crafting. It's something that could revitalize the game. Imagine a newly introduced crafting mechanic that's deep and engaging, allowing players to experiment with itemization and customization of their classes in ways that Diablo 4 previously hasn't explored. This mechanic could blend the strategy and creativity, giving players control over their gear and builds, adding a fresh layer of depth to the gameplay, something similar to Last Epoch. Another compelling concept could be a season of bosses, where they just add a handful of new bosses with some really cool and unique engaging mechanics for each one of them, add some more unique items, throw in a seasonal mechanic where if you summon those bosses, it ultimately leads for you to be able to take on an even bigger, even more challenging boss in the end that has even better rewards, something that just continues to scale with you as you level up through the entire season. Look, I'm not a developer. These are just concepts in my mind, but they sound a lot more fun and make a lot more sense in the context of an ARPG than what Diablo 4 has done in the past. I just don't see how these incremental changes to Diablo 4, this slow pace to how they've been fixing some of the more fundamental problems with the game, is going to result in them remaining relevant. It's just not fast enough, especially in a live service market. It's far too competitive. There's far too many games. There's too many games coming out every single year trying to compete in that same sphere. And then on top of that, they already have competition that's coming out this year as well. So, with that said, this step-by-step approach, like I said earlier, it's out of step with the live service industry. You can't take your sweet time trying to fix your game, because by the time that you will get it to a good place, there's a really good chance that it's not going to be relevant enough to stay above water. That's even if Xbox gives it the chance to get there in the first place. Personally, I think it's high time for them to take a step back, look at the game, retool, fix the core issues, and maybe go play some Grim Dawn, some Last Epoch, some Path of Exile. Do some research. Think about the things that players love the most about playing ARPGs and try to put that into Diablo 4. Go and play a Path of Exile season, or do the research and look to see what were the most popular Path of Exile leagues and see if you can retool them. And if you're going to make it for a casual audience, then make it in a way that it appeals to a casual audience. I can't imagine it's really all too difficult to do something like that, but I just don't feel like that's the approach that they're taking over there. They need to take the time to think about this game a little bit better, understand who their audience is, and figure out, define it, and stick with it. Because if they don't, then they're just going to continue to have the issues that they've already been having. And even if they do fix the core mechanics, it's not going to matter because, well, the game's just not going to be in a good place. Now, with that said, I continue to make videos like this because I don't hate Diablo 4. I more or less feel apathy for it. And apathy is a death flag for any game, let alone a live service game. But the reason why I do this is because I personally want the players that bought Diablo 4 to get a return on their investment. And I think they deserve that. So here's to hoping they see videos like this, they hear player outreach like this, think about it, take a step back, and just make the game better. Though that is relatively unlikely. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, think about supporting the channel. I'm going to leave my Patreon link down below. Thank you to my Patreon subscribers, by the way. Make sure you guys catch me live on Twitch. Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Peace.